One of the stories of this 2023 Rugby World Cup involves, undoubtedly, Fiji's performance. Making the quarterfinals of the tournament for the third time in their history and first time in 16 years is by no means a minor achievement. Taking full advantage of their group, with some controversial matches along the way, and making it all the way to the quarterfinals, let's take a look at Fiji's story of dominance in this 2023 Rugby World Cup. From the lead up to the event until their exit of the stadium following their tight loss in the quarterfinals against England. Prior to the event, Fiji's rugby year was marked by significant achievements and growth. During the first part of the year, they won the Pacific Nations Cup, a tournament they play against Tonga and Samoa for the 6th time. Then, just before the World Cup, just as every other team, they played a few warm-up matches. In Fiji's case, these were 2 matches against very high-profile opponents, France and England. Firstly, they lost to France, World Cup hosts and one of the best teams in the world, by 34-17. But the following week, they earned what is arguably the country's most important victory ever, against England in Twickenham. They made history, beating Steve Borthwick's team for the first time in history by 30-22. Along with this historic victory came their best ever World Rugby ranking of number 7. This was a dreamt lead-up to the 2023 Rugby World Cup. Needless to say, Fiji came into the tournament in their best shape ever. After a very solid preparation, it was time to get the World Cup campaign started. Fiji's debut in the 2023 Rugby World Cup was not an easy one. Their first opponents were the Welsh national team, arguably the strongest team in Pool C. It was a very entertaining match that could have gone either way. Both teams scored 4 tries and converted 3 of them. The difference were just 2 penalties, that is to say 6 points, that Dan Biggar scored with his right boot. Those were enough for Wales to come out on top of that battle. The match came down to the very last play, when Semi Radradra spilled the ball forward just a few meters away from the in goal, giving the victory to Wales by 32-26. Should that try had been scored, the match would have come down to a conversion. Despite the heartbreaking loss, it was not a bad debut for Fiji at all, and man did they return stronger. The following week, they had to play their second match against the most important team by name in the group, the Australian Wallabies. Given Australia's poor form, everyone speculated that whoever won that match could be in for a quarterfinal spot, as the second qualified team behind Wales. Needless to say, it was a very important match. Once again, in a very contested encounter, this time it was their turn to come out on top. With a try from Joshua Tuisova and 14 points from Simeon Kurovoli, Fiji defeated Australia by 22-15, leaving the Wallabies in a very compromised situation and virtually classifying to the quarterfinals in the second spot of that tightly contested Pool C. This was their very first victory against Australia since 1954. Still, there were 2 more matches to be played. Next up, Fiji had a week off before coming back to play Georgia for their third pool match. Once again, Fiji managed to get the win, but it was not a comfortable victory. Trailing by 9-0, they came back firing in the second half and won the match with tries from Waisia Naikalivu and Vanaya Habosi, as well as kicks by Frank Lamani. Again, they won by less than 7 points. This time it was 17-12. In spite of the result, they were doing what they had to do. They were on the brink of the World Cup's last 8. As a consequence of the other results in the group, they only needed to score a single point in their match against Portugal the following week to make it through the group. Nobody was giving this too much importance, as everyone was expecting them to easily beat Portugal, the weakest team of Pool C on paper, and make their way through. However, the story would not be as expected. Portugal was coming into the match with lots of confidence, as their performances had been up to the standard of the competition. It was their last match, and it was all or nothing for them as well. They were just playing for the pride of their nation, and surprisingly, they exceeded expectations. In an electric match, Portugal ended up beating Fiji by 1 point with a try in the very last play, 24-23, to win their first ever match in a Rugby World Cup. In spite of their loss, which some would disrespectfully towards a passionate Portuguese team call shameful, Fiji still made it through the group. Surely not in the fashion they were expecting to do so, but the defensive bonus point was enough for them to qualify and leave Australia out of the tournament. Even when they had stayed in France for the week, hoping for a miracle, it was game over for the Wallabies. So close, yet so far. The quarterfinals match is another great story. From the beginning of the tournament, it was anticipated that the quarterfinal matches for Pools C and D would be great opportunities. Factually speaking, the best 4 teams were in the other 2 groups, so the teams in the 2 weaker groups had a great opportunity, not only to make it into the quarters, but also a potential semi-final, before eventually having to face one of the serious contenders. Having qualified second, Fiji was set to play the winner of Pool D, which happened to be an undefeated England. Among the possibilities, it was certainly a very tough match, but definitely not the worst. considering they had beaten that same team prior to the tournament just a month ago. It was absolutely all to play for and nothing to lose for Fiji. During the first half of the match, England were in total control. Fiji went to halftime trailing by 11 points with a score of 21-10. Both English centers Manu Tuilagi and Joe Marchant had scored the tries. However, something clicked in the Fijian changing room during the halftime as they came back firing and scored 2 quick-fire tries to level the score at 24 with 11 minutes remaining. Everything was of course an illusion for Fiji at this time, but unfortunately Owen Farrell scored a drop goal and then a penalty to give England the victory by 6, 30-24, after an offbeat error from Fiji to end the match. They were in contention until the very last minute, but unfortunately that was their World Cup done. England progressed to the semifinals the following week to play South Africa, and Fiji's trip around France came to an end in a very respectable way. Despite being very disappointed after the match, evident by their posture post-match on the field and logical after such a hard loss, Fijian players would give everyone a lesson upon their exit from the stadium. One would expect that after such a loss, the players would be desolated. While it might have been the case, this is not what they showed everyone on their way out of the changing rooms. There were videos on social media showing their exit from the stadium, singing all together, having fun, just as if they had won the match. That is certainly a life lesson for everyone. After every match, life continues, and there's no time to be disappointed. Fiji made the most out of the opportunity they had, and were grateful for the tournament they had made. Probably it all went a lot better than they would have expected. Losing in the quarterfinals after such a strong tournament is definitely worth a celebration for these guys. After their strong 2023 Rugby World Cup campaign, there are now rumors that after years of fighting for it, Fiji might be included in the Rugby Championship, a competition that sees New Zealand, South Africa, Australia, and Argentina battle it out every year. Should that be the case, that will certainly help Fijian rugby grow and develop, and who knows what the story might be in 2027 when the next Rugby World Cup comes. Only time will tell.